Confucius. And the regulation of the family. The government of the state. The pacification of the world. Tien Cong Tran, Ph.D. Chapter 1. The regulation of the family. After having cultivated himself, one is able to regulate the family. In 5 human relations 3 are family ones: father-son, brother-brother and husband-wife. To regulate the family is to cultivate these relations. The duty of the regulation of the family is given to the father. Hence the father should cultivate his person, live in harmony with his wife and educate his children. Confucius himself told his son Boyu to learn the book of poetry to know how to speak and to learn the book of rites to know how to cultivate his person. However, the regulation of the family can also be understood that each member of the family keeps his duty and helps other members to keep their duties. King Shun showed the greatest filial piety so that his father was converted and transformed. This is also the regulation of the family. 1. Father and son. A. Father towards son. The father's obligation towards his son is seldom talked about. That is perhaps because the father's love of his son is natural. The father's love of his son is called kindness. The Great Learning quotes a saying in the book of poetry about King when, as a father, he rested in kindness. B. Son towards father. The son's obligation towards his father is called filial piety. Filial piety is the most important obligation of benevolence. Mencius says, of services, which is the greatest? The service of parents is the greatest. A son has to feed his parents. But mere feeding is not sufficient, because an animal is also fed. A son must revere his parents. Zhu asked about filial piety. The master said, nowadays filial piety merely means being able to feed one's parents. Even dogs and horses are being fed. Without reverence, how can you tell the difference? A son must not be far from his parents. The master said, when your parents are alive, do not travel far. If you travel, be sure your destination should be known. The master said, in serving your parents, be gentle in dissuasion. Seeing that they are not inclined to comply, remain reverent and do not abandon your purpose. Though weary, be not resentful. A kind of reverence is to continue the father's way. The master said, when his father is alive, he observes his intention; when his father is dead, he observes his deeds. If for 3 years he does not change his father's way, he may be said to be filial. One needs to have children to maintain the continuity of the family line. No posterity is considered unfilial. Therefore King Shun married without informing his parents, because he knew if he asked them, they would deny his marriage. King Shun was an example of utmost filial piety. Ku Sao was his father. In his 50 years of age, Shun did not please his father's heart. Therefore, even with the kingdom, being the richest in the world, with beautiful maids around, he was sorrowful and resented himself because he could not make his father content. In his 50 years of age, King Shun still loved his parents as he did in his childhood. He revered his father so much that each time he visited his father he walked on tiptoe. Therefore, even stubborn, Ku Sao finally changed and conformed to his son's virtue. He who does not love his parents or his children does not love other people. Straightness lies in love. The Duke of Shi said to Confucius, in my native village, there is a man nicknamed Straight Body. When his father stole a sheep, he bore witness against him. The master said, in my native village, straight people are different from this man, father conceals for son and son conceals for father. Straightness lies therein. 2. Brother and brother. Brotherly obedience is respect of an elder brother. Filial piety and brotherly obedience are the beginning of benevolence. Therefore a man has, to be a true man, to nourish filial piety and brotherly obedience. The Analects says, the superior man bends his attention to the roots. Only when the roots are well planted will the way grow. Are filial piety and brotherly obedience not the roots of benevolence? The Mencius says, the richest fruit of benevolence is this, the service of one's parents. The richest fruit of righteousness is this, the obeying one's elder brothers. The richest fruit of wisdom is this, the knowing those two things, and not departing from them. The richest fruit of propriety is this, the ordering and adorning those two things. The richest fruit of music is this, the rejoicing in those two things. King Shun was also an example of brotherly love. He had a step-brother named Shang. Once Ku Sao made Shun dig a well. When he was in the bottom of the well, Ku Sao and Shang covered him up. Thinking that Shun was dead, Shang said, of the scheme to cover up Shun, the merit was mine, his oxen, sheep, storehouses, and granaries would belong to parents, his shield, spear, lute, bow, and his 2 wives would be mine. But when Shang went into Shun's palace, there was Shun on his couch playing on his lute. Shang said, I was thinking anxiously about you. Shun said, these are all my officers, do you take government of them for me? Shun pretended that he did not know the scheme. To a brother, a benevolent man has no hate, no anger, but only affection and love. King Shun appointed Shang as Prince of Yupai. Nowadays we have the story of a man who sent bombs through the postal service and caused many deaths. His elder brother denounced him and he was put in prison for his whole life. King Shun and this brother, who is straight. Straight does not mean conforming to law, but conforming to the way. The way is benevolence, and benevolence begins with filial piety and brotherly obedience. Law and the way, which is more precious? Nowadays people abandon the way and follow law. They forget that law is often the weapon of evil of a class of persons. 3. Husband and wife. In the time of Confucius, human society came to the point that it was organized with the family as the basic element of society. According to Confucius, the regulation of the family is a fundamental duty. Mencius says, that male and female should dwell together, is the greatest of human relations. The relation between husband and wife is at the making of the way. The way of the superior man is found, in its making, in the relation between husband and wife, but in its utmost reaches, it shines brightly through heaven and earth. So the way of husband and wife is also the beginning of the way. The way of husband and wife is the harmony between husband and wife, and from there the harmony in the family. The way of the superior man may be compared to what takes place in traveling. When to go to a distance we must first traverse the space that is near, and in ascending a height, when we must begin from the lower ground. It is said in the book of poetry, happy union with wife and children is like music of lutes and harps. When there is concord among brothers, the harmony is delightful and enduring. Thus may you regulate your family, and enjoy the pleasure of your wife and children. The master said, in such a state of things, parents have entire complacence. Chapter 2. The Government of the State. Section 1. From the regulation of the family to the government of the state. Only he who knows how to regulate his family knows how to govern the state. What is meant by in order rightly to govern the state, it is necessary first to regulate the family is this: it is not possible for one to teach others, while he cannot teach his own family. Therefore, the ruler, without going beyond his family, completes the lessons for the state. There is filial piety, therewith the sovereign should be served. There is fraternal obedience, therewith elders and superiors should be served. There is kindness, therewith the people should be treated. In the announcement to Kang, it is said, as if a mother were watching over her infant. If a mother is eager to please her infant, though she may not hit exactly the want of her infant, she will not be far from doing so. There never has been a girl who learned to bring up a child, that she might afterwards marry. From the example of the loving of one family, the whole state becomes loving. From the courtesies of one family, the whole state becomes courteous. From the greed and perverseness of the one man, the whole state may be led to rebellious disorder. Such is the nature of the influence. This verifies the saying, affairs may be ruined by a single sentence, a kingdom may be settled by its one man. Yao and Shun led on the kingdom with benevolence, and the people followed them. Qi and Chao led on the kingdom with violence, and the people followed them. But if the orders which these issued were contrary to the practices which the people loved, people did not follow them. On this account, the ruler must himself be possessed of the good, and then he may require it in the people. He must not have the bad in himself, and then he may require that it will not be in the people. Never has there been a man who, not having reference to his own character and wishes in dealing with others, was able to instruct them. Thus we see how the government of the state depends on the regulation of the family. In the Book of Poetry, it is said, that peach tree, so delicate and elegant. How luxuriant is its foliage. This girl is going to her husband's house. She will rightly order her household. Let the household be rightly ordered, and then the people of the state may be taught. In the Book of Poetry, it is said, an elder brother is an elder brother, a younger brother is a younger brother. Let a ruler consider an elder brother as an elder brother and a younger brother as a younger brother, and then he may teach the people of the state. In the Book of Poetry, it is said, in his speech and action there is nothing wrong, all the people of the state are as right as he is. When the ruler, as a father, as a son, and as a brother, is a model, the people imitate him. In general, if a ruler does not love his family members, he does not love the people of the state. If he wants to govern the state, he must love the people as his family members. Confucius sets the loving of the family members as the base, for it is the natural feeling of man. He wants the ruler to love the people as his family members. That is the way he instructs the rulers. Section 2. The 9 Standard Rules for the Government of a State. All who have the government of the kingdom with its states have 9 standard rules to follow: the cultivation of his person, the honoring of worthy men, affection towards his relatives, respect towards the great ministers, kind and considerate treatment of the whole body of officials, loving of the people as his children, encouraging the resort of all classes of artisans, indulgent treatment of men from a distance, and kindly cherishing of the princes of the states. By the ruler's cultivation of his person, the way is established. By honoring the worthy men, he is preserved from errors of judgment. By showing affection towards his relatives, there is no grumbling or resentment among his uncles and brethren. In respecting the great ministers, he is kept from errors of government. By kind and considerate treatment of the whole body of officials, they are led to make the most grateful return for his courtesies. By loving the people as his children, they are led to exhort one another to what it is good. By encouraging the resort of all classes of artisans, his resources for expenditure are rendered ample. By indulgent treatment of men from a distance, they are brought to resort to him from all quarters. And by kindly cherishing the princes of the states, the whole empire is brought to revere him. Self-adjustment and purification, with careful regulation of his dress, and the not making a movement contrary to the rule of propriety, this is the way for a ruler to cultivate his person. Discarding slanderers, keeping himself from the seductions of beautiful women, making light of riches and giving honor to virtue, this is the way for him to encourage the worthy. Giving them places of honor and large emolument and sharing with them their likes and dislikes, the way for him to encourage his relatives to love him. Giving them numerous officials to discharge their orders and commissions, this is the way for him to encourage the great ministers. According to them a generous confidence and making their emoluments large, this is the way for him to encourage the body of officials. Employing them only at the proper times and making the imposts light, this is the way to encourage the people. By daily examinations and monthly trials and by making their rations in accordance with their labors, this is the way to encourage the classes of artisans. To escort them on their departure and meet them on their coming, to commend the good among them and show compassion to the incompetent, this is the way to treat diligently men from a distance. To appoint a prince for a state whose line of succession has been broken and to revive states that have been extinguished, to restore to order states that are in confusion and support those which are in peril, to have fixed times for their own reception at court and the reception of their convoys, to send them away with liberal gifts and welcome their coming with small contributions, this is the way to cherish the princes of the states. All who have to attend to the government of the kingdom with its states have the above 9 standard rules. And there is only one means by which they are carried into practice. Section 3. Foundation of the government. Confucius' political thought is based on his thought about man and the essence of man. 1. Man stands in front of 2 realities, the way and profit, material. 2. The way always appears, in a certain manner, to man and man loves the way. 3. The way appears, but man sinks in desires, man is attracted by material, man tends to live in fallenness understood as being far from the way. There are 2 roads, the way is the narrow road and profit is the wide road. Ordinary man prefers the wide road rather than the narrow road. 4. The essence of man lies in his relation to the way, living with the way, man is true man, while living with profit, man is not far from an animal. Indeed the way, not profit, is the realm of joy, gratification, and peace. 5. But man has to live with material, hence the way has to be the mean or harmony between the way and material. 1. Definition. Tien Cong Tran asked Confucius about government. Confucius said, "Government is correctness. If the ruler sets an example by being correct, who dares remain incorrect? Government is correctness. But what is correctness? Correctness is the way, the mean. Briefly, government is to realize the mean in society. Today, in numerous places, they ask for the separation of the state and religion. Indeed, God is a visualized symbol of the way. Are we not losing Confucius' great learning? 2. Government with the way or profit. The Mencius begins. Mencius went to see King Hui of Liang. The king said, "Venerable sir, since you have not counted it far to come here, a distance of 1,000 miles, may I presume that you are provided with counsels to profit my kingdom?" Mencius replied, "Why must your majesty use the word profit? What I am provided with, are only words to benevolence and righteousness." Mencius clearly distinguishes two domains, benevolence and righteousness, or the way, and profit or material, mammon. Is society or man based on the way or profit? There are only two ways, benevolence and unbenevolence. The way is benevolence and profit is unbenevolence. Profit is lying, rivalry, theft, robbery, and war. Because politics is correctness and correctness is the way, to govern is to govern by the way. This is not this world which is right, there is only this world which is lying. Karl Marx is erroneous when he wants to build a paradise on the base of material. Tien Cong asked about government. The master said, "Have enough food and enough arms, and the people will trust you." Tien Cong said, "If one had to give up one of these three, which should one give up first?" "Give up arms." Tien Cong said, "If one had to give up one of the remaining two, which should one give up first?" "Give up food." Since the beginning of time, all men are subject to death. If the people do not trust you, you have nothing to stand on. 3. The way or law. If you govern by the way, the people follow you. If they obey law, this is also because of the way. If you govern by law, they obey law because of law. But they have numerous tricks and can escape law. Moreover, there are those who usurp law for their profit. If you govern them with decrees and regulate them with punishments, the people will evade them but will have no sense of shame. If you guide them with virtue and keep them in line with the rules of propriety, the people will have the sense of shame and return to the right way. Shame is the feeling of the way. No sense of shame is no knowledge of the way. The way leads the people into discipline, and so they are correct with the way. If the way constitutes the essence of man, to govern with the way helps the people to become true men and far from animals. Mencius quoted the saying, "Virtue alone is not sufficient for the exercise of government, laws alone cannot carry themselves into practice." The statement proves that Mencius is practical. Because the way is vague, it needs laws to determine its boundaries. Hence, right laws are used to serve the way. For the method of government, example. Confucius conceives that the ruler should be an example for the people. This corresponds to the government with the way. If you want the people to observe the way, but you yourself neglect it, how are you able to instruct them to follow it? They love the way and follow a man of virtue. Hence he who conducts government with virtue is like to the North Star which, staying in its place, is turned around by all other stars. Tien Cong Tran, distressed by the number of thieves, consulted Confucius. The master said, if you are not lustful, even though you should reward them, they would not steal. Tien Cong Tran asked Confucius about government, saying, "If I kill those who do not follow the way to have others closer to the way, what do you think of it?" The master replied, "Sir, in conducting government, why should you use killing? Just desire the good yourself and the people will be good. The virtue of the superior man is like wind, the virtue of the common man is like grass. The grass must bend when the wind blows across it." The master said, "If the ruler is correct, even without issuing orders, the people follow him. If the ruler is incorrect, although he issues orders, the people will not follow him." A example of benevolence. If filial piety and fraternal obedience are the foundation of benevolence, the ruler gave an example when he serves his parents and loves his brothers. That is why the example of King Shun was promoted. He served his father as well as loved his brother, even when they plotted to kill him. Only a king who possesses filial piety to his parents and fraternal obedience to his brothers knows to love the people. A ruler who accused his parents in the village courtyard says that he loves the people, he is a liar. The Duke of Shi said to Confucius, "In my native village, there is a man nicknamed Straight Body. When his father stole a sheep, he bore witness against him." The master said, "In my native village, straight people are different from this man. Father conceals for son and son conceals for father. Straightness lies therein." Hence, according to Confucius, the accusation of one's parents is not straight. Being not straight is not knowing heaven's order. Not knowing heaven's order is unbenevolent. An unbenevolent man loves the people. Such a thing has never happened. If it happens, it can be only according to lying. B example of propriety. The way appears as heaven earth spirit God. Hence making offerings resides in the essence of man. Man is a true man when he lives in the realm of heaven earth spirit God. For man, the divine, sacred realm is an obligatory demand. Karl Marx is wrong when he thinks that religion is alienation of man. It is no religion that is alienation of man. The Superman or Antichrist of Nietzsche is a symbol of a man in alienation. Confucius pays great attention to making offerings, sacrifice. The master said, "Of you, I can find no flaw." Simple food and drink, he displayed the utmost filial piety towards the spirit and gods. Shabby in dress and skirt, he had the most beautiful sacrificial robe and crown. Of you, I can find no flaw. Offerings are not only for spirits and gods, but also for ancestors. Hence making offerings to ancestors is a way of living in the divine realm. Confucius talks about the far-extending filial piety of King Wu and the Duke of Zhou. When spring and autumn came, they repaired and adorned the temple halls of their forefathers, set forth their ancestral vessels, displayed their various robes and presented the offerings of the several seasons. A king makes offerings to spirits, gods and ancestors, and the people imitate him. They imitate him and they go into the nature of man. Living in the divine realm drives people out of attachment to the material world and lifts up their hearts to serenity. C. Example in choosing the worthy. A king must choose the worthy because they are also examples for the people. Moreover, to employ the worthy is to stimulate the people to become worthy. Tien Cong Tran asked, "How do we make the people reverent, loyal, and mutual encouraging to virtue?" The master said, "If you rule over them with dignity, the people will be reverent. If you are filial and loving, they will be loyal. If you promote the good and instruct the incapable, the people will mutual encourage to virtue. Mencius said, if a ruler give honor to the worthy, employ the able and promote men of distinction and mark to right ranks, all scholars in the kingdom will be pleased and wish to serve in the court. What must we do to make the people obedient? The master said, promote the upright, place them above the crooked, and the people will be obedient. Promote the crooked, place them above the upright, and the people will be disobedient. D. Example in loving the people. When a ruler knows loving, the people know loving. When the sovereign behaves to his aged as the aged should be behaved to, the people become filial. When the sovereign behaves to his elders as his elders should be behaved to, the people learn brotherly obedience. When the sovereign treats compassionately the orphaned, the people do the same. Thus, the ruler has the rules for his way. If a ruler loves the people, they will turn to him. By dealing with the people as his children, they are led to exhort one another to follow him. By indulgent treatment of men from a distance, they are brought to exhort to him from all quarters. Mencius said, there is a way to get the heart of the people, it is simply to collect for them what they like, and not to lay on them what they dislike. 5. Educating the people. If you want to govern with the way, education is indispensable. Man values the way, but he likes profit and thus tells lies. The master journeyed to Wei, with Jan Yu driving. The master said, how populous? Jan Yu asked, it is populous, what is to be done next? The master said, make the people rich. Jan Yu asked, when they are rich, what is to be done next? The master said, educate them. Today education is different from ancient education. Today education aims at knowledge of the material world, ancient education aimed at human relations, relations between father and son, king and official, husband and wife, brothers and friends. When a ruler wants to lead the people into war, education is necessary. The master said, after a benevolent man instructs the people for 7 years, they may be employed to take arms. The master said, to employ uninstructed people in battle is to abandon them. 6. Only when food is enough, the way may be walked on. Mencius is very practical. First the people must have enough food, then the way may be talked about. Propriety and righteousness are flowers that come to adorn life. In such poor circumstances the people try to save themselves from death, and they are afraid they will not succeed. What time can they spare for cultivating propriety and righteousness? However, we should remember that without the way men are not far from animals. Do we want men to live as animals? 7 Results of government with the way and government with profit. There is this fact, men like to live with material, but their hearts love virtue. Mencius said, the people turn to benevolence as water flows downwards, and as wild beasts fly to the wilderness. The benevolent man has no match. Thus government with the way brings success. Confucius and especially Mencius always told the rulers about success of government with the way and failure of government without the way. In the book of poetry it is said, before the sovereigns of the Yin dynasty had lost the hearts of the people, they could appear before God. Take warning from the Yin dynasty. The great decree is not easily preserved. This shows that, by gaining the people, the kingdom is gained, and, by losing the people, the kingdom is lost. That is the advice for a king who wanted to keep his kingdom. Confucius taught a king to govern with the way because of not only the people but also the king himself. If a king wanted to continue to be king, to retain land for himself or for his successors, he had not to lose the hearts of the people. God or heaven's order indicates the way in the hearts of the people. To lose the people is to lose land is to lose wealth, to lose wealth is to have no resources for expenditure, to have no resources for expenditure is to be king no longer. Virtue is the root, wealth is the result. If he the ruler makes the root his secondary object and the result his primary, he will wrangle with the people and teach them to rapine. Hence, his accumulation of wealth is the way to scatter the people, and his letting it be scattered among them is the way to collect the people. Hence the ruler's words going forth contrary to right will come back to him in the same way, and wealth, gotten by improper ways, will take its departure by the same. A king was also greedy, and he had supreme power. Hence kings often heaped up their treasures with wealth. This is the common law, a person has desires. Confucius wanted to instruct a king that wealth is the result, and the way is the root. If he abandoned the root and took the result, he would lose not only the root but also the result. When the ruler wanted to pile wealth, he had to take parts of the people. In the state wealth was not somewhat equally divided. When the ruler piled up wealth, he wrangled with the people. The people imitated the ruler to pile up wealth, and thus they wrangled with one another. In such a situation they left for another state. The people departed, and the state became weak and then lost. At that time the wealth piled up by the ruler also went away. Not only the wealth piled up by the ruler went away, but the ruler himself also went away too. Chapter 3. The Pacification of the World. Confucius lived in the time of the dynasty of Zhou. At that time China followed the feudal system. In feudalism, the king who reigned the kingdom or the empire or the world was called the Son of Heaven. But at that time the means of transportation and communication was slow, and therefore the Son of Heaven was not able to govern the entire China. On this account, he divided the country into many areas and appointed his relatives or meritorious men or worthy men to govern those areas. An area was called a state. In comparison to the kingdom or the empire, a state was a satellite state. So the word country indicated the kingdom, empire, or a state. The head of a state was called satellite king, prince, or briefly king, prince. So king could indicate the Son of Heaven or, satellite, king, prince. The states were different in dimensions, hence, satellite, kings were divided into 5 ranks: Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, and Baron. However, in fact, there were always some states who did not want to be loyal to the Son of Heaven, to usurp his power and even to become the Son of Heaven. There were states that did not respect other states and wanted to conquer them. The land of the Son of Heaven could be more than 1,000 miles and his army could be more than 1,000 carriages. Numerous states conquered other states, their lands became larger and their armies stronger. The number of states changed from time to time, once it came up to 1,600. But then states occupied others' lands and destroyed each other. This resulted in that the number of states once came down to more than 100. Sometimes a state had its satellite states. In the time of spring and summer, 722 to 479, there were 14 strong states. When the Great Learning speaks of government of a state, it speaks of satellite states, and when speaks of pacification of the world, it speaks of the kingdom, empire, entire China. When the king of a state was a kingdom or wanted to become a kingdom, government of the state included pacification of the world. A king who governed with the way could not only govern his state but also pacify the empire. The pacification of the empire is the highest goodness. The highest goodness is to brighten bright virtue and renovate people. In order to brighten bright virtue and renovate people, one must investigate things and attain to deep knowledge. Successful investigation of things or deep knowledge is the end of everything. Successful investigation or deep knowledge is knowledge of the way as, regarding heavenly way, heaven earth spirit God, and as, with regard to human way, benevolence. Pacifying means equality, justice, and peace. When everyone is equal, just and peaceful, people of four quarters are brothers. Si Maniu sadly said, everyone else has brothers, I alone have none. Xushia said, I have heard it, life and death lie in fate, wealth and rank depend on heaven. The superior man is reverent and does nothing amiss, he treats others with respect and courtesy. All men within the four seas are his brothers. Why does the superior man need to worry about having no brothers?